Sarah on FSN and HD.
Takeoff on discretion, wind 208 knots. Smoke on.
The best pilots in the world, racing at 250 miles per hour, just 30 feet off the ground, in the greatest show off Earth. Today, from San Diego, California, the 2007 Red Bull Air Race World Series continues right here on FSN. Now we welcome you to beautiful San Diego, California, America's finest city. Host stop 9 of 10 on the Red Bull Air Race World Series. Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Goldberg, joined as always by my partner, Alan Preston, former Air Race World Champion, combat aviator, and now it is down to two. Two races remain, two men, Paul Bonhomme and Mike Mangold, separated by 2 points.
Wow. These two guys have been in each other's face the entire series, and it comes down to this. One little mistake, and you're out of here. They can't afford it.
Only one man can be the World Series champion. You talk about mistakes. With that in mind, all the pressure on the pilots, do they approach things differently with two races remaining and everything so tight and magnified?
I don't think they can afford to. I think you got to dance with the one that brought you. These guys are different, we know that, but they are supremely confident. They're going to fly their race the way they've flown the whole year. Fast, aggressive, tough.
Partner, what do they say in football? The prevent defense only prevents one from winning, so don't look for either man to fly with the prevent defense mentality here today. Of course, as always, here on the Red Bull Air Race World Series, 12 pilots attempt to qualify, the top 8 make it into our quarterfinal round based on their qualifying times. Paul Bonhomme is the top seed here in San Diego. Owner of the top spot in the World Series point standings is the American Mike Mangold, the California native with that 2-point lead that we talked about earlier. Mike Mangold flying today in front of family and friends and taking time for us to break down the course here over San Diego Bay.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to San Diego's Big Bay. Stop 9 of 10 for the Red Bull Air Race. Got a great course, only 6 gates, but a lot more turns than what we've seen at the last one in Porto. As they circle over the midway, gaining speed, I get a nice view of Coronado Island, but all focus is on gate 1 of the track. Diving down here in excess of 200 miles an hour, and the lineup is to go from gate 1 right into the chicane. We got good speed, wings level, and now it's a setup with a rather hard turn. The chicane very tight, the exit is the key. 10, 11 Gs as we go from gate 2 to 3. Level turn, gate 4 is just a big sweeping turn, the key to get the wings level through the gate. Now, as we go over here to this quadro, gate 5, we're going to smoke our cigar. Going into the quadro, it's just a setup for the left 9th. And our standard 8 to 10 G, 270-degree turn for the second left dive pitch to the quadro. The sprint to the finish, we're going to take a rather oblique angle, hope we get through without nudging a gate. Look back, how'd we do?
All right, Mike, I think you did great. Great course breakdown by Mike Mangold. Man, would he love to add to his 2-point lead in the World Series standings. Let's go down to the tarmac as our pilots start their engines. And while our pilots prepare for today's competition, we remind you once again of the rules and regulations on the Red Bull Air Race World Series. The course must be passed through in the proper fashion, horizontal through the blue gates, vertical or so-called knife edge through the red gates. Penalties are incurred for the following. The first flying too high over a gate, a 3-second penalty. An incorrect level of flight, that's also a 3-second penalty. Incorrect knife edge flight through a red gate, 3-second penalty assessed. Touching a gate is a 10-second penalty added to your time. And if a pilot deviates off course at any time, he will be disqualified. It is time to get the competition underway. Over the San Diego Bay, you get a beautiful shot of Coronado Island, the San Diego downtown skyline. A great crowd, and they are ready for racing. Our first quarterfinal matchup pits the number 3 seed, the Hungarian Peter Bessenye, against the Brit, the number 6 seed, Nigel Lamb. Nigel Lamb has qualified for the quarterfinals in 7 of the 9 races this year, but has yet to get out of the first round. Will today be the first time he advances to the Final Four?
Number 10, Nigel, cleared into the track. Smoke on.
Clear to the track. Smoke on, number 10.
We are set for racing here in beautiful San Diego, California. Nigel Lamb is on the track. He opens at 230 miles per hour. Alan, a little different here. No vertical trips for our pilots. 13 gates, all pretty much across the water, as Mike Mangold showed us.
You know, Mike, this track is faster. It's more of a rhythm course. I think we're going to see Nigel Lamb perform really well on this. It's suited to his airplane. It's suited to his flying style.
Remember, we've said before, Nigel Lamb flies in the heavier MX2.
Yeah, and it puts him at a disadvantage in some of the tighter courses, and particularly those with a lot of vertical, like you pointed out earlier. But here, this course was made for Nigel.
Well, Alan, he'll try to target about 1:25. And just for you at home to reference, as Nigel Lamb, our first to compete here today, Paul Bonhomm's top qualifying time was 1:24.19 seconds. So that's what everybody will look towards as kind of the measuring stick here in San Diego.
One of the things that I like best about this new head-to-head elimination format are the matchups that it creates. Peter Besnier is going to be a tough matchup for anybody, and Nigel Lamb typically would rather have almost anybody else. But here on this course, he's got a chance.
This is the first matchup of the season between Nigel Lamb and Peter Besnier. 1 gate to go for the Brit. Let's see what type of time he is able to post. 1:26.11. Not bad considering what I mentioned earlier, that the best qualifying time was 1:24.19. So Nigel Lamb goes into the holding pattern as Peter Besnier is set to hit the track. Besnier with 2 victories so far this season, one of those in the other stop here in the United States, Monument Valley, Utah.
Number 2, Peter, cleared into the track. Smoke on.
Roger, we are coming. Number 2.
Besnier, as we mentioned, stands in the number 3 spot on the World Series point standings, but he is truly on the outside looking in to the big 2. Paul Bonhomme and Mike Mangold. Besnier opens at 231 miles per hour. As Mangold showed us earlier, Alan, that chicane sneaks up very quickly on our pilots. And as always, it is horizontal through the blue gates, knife edge, or vertical through the red gates.
You know, Mike, speaking of quickly, we're going to get a chance to see how quickly these pilots learn their way around a racetrack. This track's very different. It's looser, it's got smoother roll-ins to the turn. There are a lot more points for these pilots to choose individual lines. They're not getting crammed through holes like they were on some of the other tracks.
Alan, suffice to say, this track is drastically different than our last stop in Porto, Portugal, where we had the 3 verticals up and down the very narrow Douro River. Peter Besnier trails by a narrow margin.
You know, Peter's got a shot here. He's a little unhappy because his 300 SR has given him fits. He's not been able to bring it to the race and use it. So he's in his Edge 540, but it's a good airplane for this racetrack.
Besnier has cut the deficit in half, but he's still in danger of being eliminated. Remember, he was ousted in the semifinals in Porto, Portugal by just 1/100th of a second. Besnier, 2 gates remain. Will he advance to the Final Four? The time to beat, 1:26.11. Besnier will storm towards the finish. And he misses it. Peter Besnier has been eliminated.
Number 10, Nigel, 1:26.11, no penalties. Number 2, Peter, 1:26.46, no penalties. Nigel, you're through to the semi-final.
Nigel Lamb advances, and with this loss, Besnier mathematically eliminated from any chance of winning the World Series championship. Alan, let's take a look at our dartfish technology. That's where we trace the line of flight of both pilots simultaneously.
Mike, you know this is my favorite part of the race right here, our dartfish.
Peter Besnier flies a great race, but Nigel Lamb just has the better horse for this day. The course is not as tight, means less G's, they carry more speed, the MX2 is better at it, Nigel Lamb wins.
Besnier has not made it to the podium since London, has not won a race since the last time we were in the U.S. Then in Monument Valley, his quest for a championship falls short for a third straight year. Nigel Lamb advances. Our next quarterfinal is the 2-7 matchup as the American Kirby Chambliss is set to compete here in San Diego on the Red Bull Air Race World Series on FSN. Diego, the Red Bull Air Race World Series. Alex McLean, the Spaniard, on the track. This is quarterfinal run. McLean, the number 7 seed. Kirby Chambliss, the American, the number 2 seed. 1 gate to go. McLean will hit the finish. His time, 1:28.01 seconds. Not as fast as he would like.
Number 36, Alejandro, proceed to hold 3.
Holding 3.
You know, Mike, McLean was complaining about those 500 hard hours on that engine in Porto, and they never got a chance to change it. That's probably still part of the problem that's slowing him down.
So McLean was unable to make some adjustments. Meantime, Kirby Chambliss has upgraded his aircraft.
Well, Kirby did, and he had time to stick this new flat wing on his airplane, the same as Ivanov did earlier in the year. Flat wing is faster, it's all about speed. And this is a great racetrack to find out how it's going to work for him.
Well, it certainly seemed to make a difference in qualifying. The number 2 seed, Kirby Chambliss, is set to race.
Number 1, Kirby, cleared into the track. Smoke on.
Smoke on for the moisture, thank you.
Chambliss has already defeated McLean on 2 occasions in head-to-head matchups. He'll look to make it 3 straight here. Quarter-final run for Kirby Chambliss, the defending World Series champion. He opened at 223 miles per hour.
You know, it's interesting, Mike. His entry speed was slower than some of the other planes that we've seen. I wonder what Kirby knows that we haven't figured out yet.
Well, one thing we do know at this point, it's about pride for Kirby Chambliss. He will not repeat as the champion, but I'm certain that he'd like to get some good runs in, partner, and build some momentum for next season.
No question about it. Kirby's been frustrated all year, and he's still frustrated. He wants to win every time out. He really wants to win here in front of his home crowd.
Well, I'm not frustrated, but I'm puzzled by something. This has been bothering me the whole race. When we saw the shot of Kirby's plane in the hangar, it looked like there was literally tape on the wing. What the heck is that?
Well, did you think it was holding the wing on, Mike?
That's what I was worried about.
No, when they put this new wing on this airplane, they had to create fillets to fit it to the airplane. Probably didn't get them done correctly. They don't fit tightly. They seal the airplane to keep the air from going in and out and slowing the airplane down.
So if all else fails, use duct tape.
It'll hold the wing on.
At least you hope so. Kirby Chambliss with a sizable lead with 2 gates remaining in this quarterfinal matchup. We talked about the time of McLean being a bit less than what he would like it to be, and we can see it's going to cost him here. 1 gate remains. Chambliss should advance to the final 4. He's got to beat a 1:28, and he easily does. Great time, 1:24.58 seconds.
Number 36, Alejandro, 1 minute 28.01 seconds, no penalties. Number 1, Kirby, 1 minute 24.58 seconds, no penalties. Kirby through the semis.
Thank you, Alex. Well done, Kirby. Congratulations.
Nice to see Kirby Chambliss with a smile on his face. Alan, let's take a look at our Dartfish replay.
Well, you saw McLean's face right there. He wasn't very surprised at the outcome of this race, and I'm not either. He just didn't fly the track very well. Watch Kirby here push the airplane down, accelerate, roll in quicker, go through the quadro. He pulls hard, he separates on McLean, race over right there.
And once again, a spectacular time, 1:24.58 seconds. So Kirby Chambliss, the number 2 seed, advances to the final 4. He joins Nigel Lamb in our semifinals. Who will be the next to advance? Will it be Mike Mangold or Steve Jones? Our quarterfinal action from San Diego continues after this, right here on FSN.
ESPN, serving sports fans around.
Bank is
FSN, home of the Oregon State Beavers.
Welcome back to the quarterfinals here of the Red Bull Air Race World Series on FSN. What a beautiful day in San Diego, California. Moments ago, quarterfinal matchup between Nicholas Ivanov, the Corsican, and the top-seeded Brit, Paul Bonhomme. Remember, Bonhomme opened the day 2 points behind Mike Mangold in the World Series standings. And it is Paul Bonhomme who advances. He eliminates Nicholas Ivanov. Bonhomme flying in a time of 1:25.27 seconds. So one quarterfinal matchup remains, and that will be between the number 4 seed Steve Jones and the number 5 seed Mike Mangold. And with Bonhomme advancing, Mangold needs to hold serve here. Mike Mangold, our World Series points leader.
Number 3, Mike, cleared into the track. Smoke on.
Smoke on, cleared on the track. Number 3, Mike.
Alan, this is a great quarterfinal rematch, if you will, because remember, Steve Jones defeated Mike Mangold in the finals in Porto, Portugal in our last event. Mangold here is the number 5 seed. Is there reason for concern?
There could be, Mike. You know, we've said many times, you can't take one pylon off on this racetrack anywhere in the series. And this low seeding for him has put him in a really tough matchup.
And a tough matchup in front of family and friends making the trip down from Victorville, California. So the native of the Golden State, Mike Mangold, wants a little revenge from the last race in Porto against Steve Jones and wants to keep pace with Paul Bonhomme, who has already advanced to the semifinals.
That has to add to the pressure for Mike Mangold right here. And he's flying a good race, that's clear, but he's got to fly a great race.
Both Bonhomme and Mangold have made it to every semifinal this season. In fact, they have made the podium, both those men, in every race here in 2007.
Well, Paul Bonhomme winning his quarterfinals is going to play an important part in this race in San Diego and in the World Series Championship, but it's not on Mike Mangold's mind right now. Right now, he's thinking about the choices he's got to make on this racetrack to win this quarterfinal.
And Alan, you mentioned in our open to the show that you don't expect Bonhomme or Mangold to deviate from what has got them to this point in the season. 2 gates remain. Let's see what type of time Mangold can throw down. Pulling 8.1 G. Through the quadro, storming towards the finish. Here is Mangold. His time, 1:25.08 seconds. Outstanding.
Number 3, Mike, proceed to hold 3.
3, number 3, Mike.
So as I mentioned, an outstanding time turned in by Mike Mangold. Remember, the fastest time in qualifying was Paul Bonhomme's time of 1:24.91 seconds. Steve Jones is on approach. He is set to hit the track here in the quarterfinals. Jones's qualifying time was 1:25.19 seconds.
Number 19, Steve, cleared into the track. Smoke on.
Into the track, smoke on, 19.6.
Which tells me, Alan, Jones is fast enough to win this race.
Well, one thing's for sure, Jones believes he's fast enough. He's brimming with confidence right now. He's fresh off of his victory in Porto over this very same Mike Mangold. He's got his airplane dialed in. He came here to win.
And if he is victorious, if he is able to eliminate Mangold here in the quarters, he'll do his buddy Paul Bonhomme, the fellow Brit, a huge favor.
An unbelievable favor.
And so far, he has the lead at the first split by a quarter of a second. Remember, 13 gates total. The time turned in by Mangold, 1:25.08 seconds. Ironically, his time faster than the time turned in the quarterfinals by Paul Bonhomme. But that's what makes this format so interesting.
Absolutely, Mike. This head-to-head format that we're flying with this year introduces a new equation every time out.
Speaking of numbers, now it is Jones who's off the pace. He trailed at the second split. 3 gates to go for Steve Jones, the Brit, the number 4 seed.
This is going to be really close. Both these guys are flying a great race.
He's in the lead again, Alan. 1:07 on the clock. 2 gates remain. 1:25.08 Mangold's time. Jones pulling 7.5 G. quadro. And the final gate is approaching. Can he do it? He has. Steve Jones has beaten Mike Mangold.
Number 3, Mike, 1 minute 25.08 seconds, no penalties. Number 19, Steve, 1 minute 24.98, no penalties. Steve is through to the semi-final.
Excellent, fantastic, fantastic. Well done, Mike.
Steve, nice job.
Wow, what a huge victory for Steve Jones. Dennis Sawyer, the Team Mangold crew chief, sees his pilot bettered by the Brits by 1/10 of a second. A great win for Steve Jones, a helpful win for Paul Bonhomme. Let's see how it happened on the Dartfish.
Well, it started right here, Mike, in this big left-hand turn. Look at Mangold and how soft he takes that turn. Look at the separation that Steve Jones gets on him. Now, we've talked all day about the interesting part of this racetrack and how many options were open to the pilot. Watch again right here as Mangold takes completely different lines and almost closes it up at the very end, barely losing this race.
Mangold beaten again by Steve Jones. That's the second head-to-head matchup between these two that has gone the way of the Brit, Steve Jones. So the Final Four is set, and most notably, Mike Mangold misses the semifinals for the first time in 2007. Look at the reaction of Dennis Sawyer, his crew chief, when the news was handed down. Wow, the drama continues to unfold. Mangold eliminated. The semis next on FSN. On FSN, and then there were 4. But for the first time this season, missing from the Final Four is the American. Mike Mangold, Bonhomme, Jones, Chambliss, and Lamb have advanced to the semifinal round. Mike Goldberg, Alan Preston. Alan, you already broke it down. We saw the Dartfish, but I have to ask you, did Mike Mangold make a critical mistake, or was Steve Jones just that spectacular?
A little bit of both. Steve Jones flew the race of his life, no question about that. But, you know, if you look at their qualifying time, Steve Jones was 7/100ths of a second faster there, too. 10/100ths of a second faster here. Very consistent. But I'll tell you this, if Mike Mangold had the advantage of Dartfish like we did, if he'd seen that left-hand turn, he could have beaten Steve Jones.
Amazing development here, and now basically what it provides is Paul Bonhomme to put this whole entire World Series championship race right into his own hands, because Bonhomme, if he can win now that Mangold has been eliminated, could turn a 2-point deficit into a 2-point advantage with only 1 race remaining. So the championship picture has drastically changed, and since the quarterfinal round, so is the weather here in San Diego.
Yeah, it has, Mike. When you see weather conditions change this fast, it's because the wind is picking up and blowing. So it's going to alter the conditions down on the racetrack significantly. That being said, as long as these guys have to fly in the same conditions, in the end, it doesn't make a lot of difference.
Well, it's all dry now on the tarmac, and like you mentioned, Alan, the wind has picked up substantially. It'll be very interesting to see how Paul Bonhomme and Steve Jones deal with the elements. Their semifinal run is coming up next when we return to the Red Bull Air Race World Series on FSN. Welcome back to San Diego. Welcome back to the Red Bull Air Race World Series. Paul Bonhomme on the track, semifinal run for the Brit. And oh, what an important run it is on this, his 43rd birthday. And no offense, of course, but he's much closer to my age than he would be yours, Al.
Well, in spite of what you might think, Mike, I was not there at the Wright brothers' first flight. But you're right, Paul Bonhomme is younger than a lot of the competitors on this track, and I think sometimes it shows up in his ability to keep the speed up.
Well, he's been as good as anybody this entire 2007 season.
Paul Bonham's armed with everything he needs today. He knows Mike Mangold's been eliminated. He knows a victory here guarantees him the points lead going into the final race, and he rarely makes mistakes anyway. I don't think you're going to see one here.
2 gates remaining. His best time of the weekend, 1:24.91 seconds. That was his qualifying time. But as we talked about, the conditions have changed a little bit since earlier today, and realistically since the qualifying runs as well. Bonhomme crosses the finish. His time 1:26. .08 seconds. Now that's his slowest run of the weekend and much slower than Steve Jones's quarterfinal time of 1:24.98.
Number 19, Steve, 30 seconds, the wind on the southwest, 9 knots.
30 seconds, 19, Steve.
You know, Mike, I just want to take a minute here and point out something that's a little unusual for us today. Not all the risks are associated with the racing that we've seen in the past. When you fly over salt water like this, there's a tremendous bird hazard. And a bird strike on an airplane can wreak havoc on the airplane and the pilot. It can kill you. And the pilots go to great lengths to protect themselves. We saw a screen over the air intake, and you see them wearing these visors. The visor's not to keep the sun out, it's to keep the bird out.
Number 19, Steve, cleared into the track, smoke on.
Into the track, smoke on, 19, Steve.
Well, what Steve Jones has done today is keep Mike Mangold out of the semifinals. Now can he better fellow Brit Paul Bonhomme and work his way towards back-to-back wins? The winner of Porto, Portugal is on the track. Now, Alan, I gotta say, I'm not a negative person. I always think everything is perfect out there. But I did see the movie Conspiracy Theory. And Jones and Bonhomme already don't like Mangold, and it would actually be pretty good for Bonhomme if he beats Jones. You know what I'm saying.
So what you're saying is you think Steve Jones might give Bonham a birthday present a little early?
I'm not saying, but I'm just saying.
Well, let's wait and see.
All right, Steve Jones is on the track, about at the midway point. The time turned in by the fellow Brit Paul Bonhomme here in the semifinals, 1:26.08 seconds. Now remember, Jones was outstanding in eliminating Mangold. His time was just under 1:25 flat.
Mike, he's already 2 seconds behind. I'm sorry, but you're going to have a hard time convincing me that's an accident.
All right, this could be a discussion for another time. Nonetheless, let's see what Steve Jones does with 3 gates remaining. Bonham's time once again, 1:26.08. And he's still 2 seconds off the pace set by the fellow Brit, the top seed. 2 gates now remain.
Steve Jones is an awfully fast race pilot, and I don't see him catching up right here.
1 gate remains. Can Jones better the time of Bonhomme, or will Bonhomme officially have the World Series lead? He does. Bonhomme the better in the semifinals. He has captured the point standings lead.
Number 55, Paul, 1:26.08 seconds, no penalties. Number 19, Steve, 1:27.6, no penalties. Paul, you're through to the final.
Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks, Steve. And I'll buy it out there, I promised earlier. See you later. Paul, happy birthday.
Okay, Mike, let's let the Dartfish show us exactly what was inside that birthday present that we heard Steve Jones deliver right there. Jones started his quarterfinal run against Mangold at 2:35. He started this one against Bonham 15 miles an hour slower. Happy birthday.
Well, as they say, you be the judge. We know one thing, Bonham advances to the finals. He is now the World Series points leader. Who will he face next? It will either be fellow Brit Nigel Lamb, who won his first quarterfinal heat of the season earlier today, or last year's World Series champion, the American, Kirby Chambliss. Semi-final action continues from San Diego when we return right here on FS10.
Your head's got to be right. I mean, not only for the sake of winning, but also for the sake of staying alive. I mean, we're going 260 miles an hour, 10 feet off the ground, zipping through these gates. So you better know where you're at and where the airplane's at all the time. I've been competing for so long that I know you've got to be able to relax in a pretty hostile environment. And I think the only thing that allows you to do that is experience. Because maybe you can make some small mistakes. You make a big mistake and, you're dead.
Well, Kirby Chambliss doing a great job of putting things in perspective here. Our final semifinal set here over the San Diego Bay, beautiful San Diego, California. As we talked about, Bonhomme is in the finals. He will face the winner of this semifinal heat, either the number 2 seed Kirby Chambliss or the 6th seeded Brit, Nigel Lamb. 3 Brits in all in the semifinals here today in San Diego.
Number 10, Nigel, cleared into the track, smoke on.
number 2.
Peter Bessonnier looking on. He, of course, was upset in the quarterfinals by Nigel Lamb. That was Lamb's first quarterfinal victory of the season. He opens up at, oh look, 230 miles per hour. Now, this semifinal heat certainly doesn't have the World Series ramifications of the one we saw a moment ago, but there's still some very important storylines. And for Nigel Lamb, it's first and foremost about earning some respectability.
Nigel's looked for that respect all year. You know, he's qualified 7 of the 9 times, but he never gets out of the quarterfinals. We know he's flying a heavier airplane. We know he's struggled with it, but he's got a chance here to make a real statement about how good he is, not the airplane.
Well, he was as good as he's been all season, and ousting Peter Bessonnier earlier today. His time, by the way, in that quarterfinal victory was 126.11 seconds. Another interesting storyline, though, here, Alan, is that we haven't seen Lamb fly multiple flights all season long because this is the first time he's made it to the semifinals, and you've talked about the physical conditioning that our pilots have to have as well.
No question about it, Mike. Fatigue enters into it. It's a factor. He hasn't had to do it before. We're going to get a chance to see if he's up to the task.
Heavier plane, 2 runs in 1 day. Let's see how his time turns out. 2 gates remain. Nigel Lamb, the Brit, coming in as the number 6 seed. Lamb neatly handles the quadro, knife edge through the red gates. And he approaches the finish. His time is 127.88 seconds.
Number 10, Nigel, proceed to hold 3.
Proceed hold 3, number 10.
Well, perhaps fatigue was a bit of a factor. Lamb, a second and a half slower than he was in his quarterfinal run. Now it's Kirby Chambliss's turn.
Number 1, Kirby, cleared into the track. Smoke on.
Kirby Chambliss, a 124.58 in the quarterfinals, easily eliminating Alex McLean. That is our fastest time so far this weekend. Chambliss opens up at 235 miles per hour, blazing through the early gates.
You know, Mike, I like the way Kirby started this race. He's got that flat wing on the airplane. It accelerates really well. He carried a lot of speed down the starting chute, and you could really see a difference when he went through the chicane.
Well, the difference at the split is Chambliss is about a second off the pace. But there is a lot of track remaining, and Kirby Chambliss desperately wants to advance to the finals. You know, we talked about storylines. We talked about Nigel Lamb wanting respectability. I'm positive that Chambliss would like to right some wrongs with a great finish here.
We all know Kirby's a warrior, and we all know what a tough year he's had. But he's got a chance right here in front of the hometown crowd to show them who he really is and, hey, set the course for next year.
Yeah, at the end of the day, he could always say, hey, let's build on the win in San Diego. But he's 2 heats shy of that right now. First things first, he has to beat Nigel Lamb. Chambliss is up by just a quarter of a second with 2 gates remaining. Will Kirby Chambliss advance to the finals here in San Diego? Chambliss, his final trip through the quadro. He will storm towards the finish. This is going to be close. Chambliss has done it. Kirby Chambliss is in the finals.
Number 10, Nigel, 1 minute 27.88 seconds, no penalty. Number 1, Kirby, 1 minute 26.29 seconds, no penalties. Kirby, you're into the final.
All right, nice job, Nigel. Thank you very much. All right, well done, Kirby. Good one.
Kirby Chambliss advancing to the finals for just the 2nd time this season. Take a look at the dartfish.
Mike, this particular dartfish is going to show us that Kirby was just superior on every part of the race course. But one thing it will help us understand is how that new wing is working. Watch how quickly his airplane accelerates every time he rolls wings level.
Kirby Chambliss won 4 races last year on his way to the World Series Championship. He is looking for his first win of this season, and he has advanced to the finals to face the Brit, Paul Bonhomme. Our finals from San Diego are coming up next when we continue our coverage of the Red Bull Air Race World Series right here on FSN. Welcome back to San Diego. Welcome back to the Red Bull Air Race World Series on FSN. While we were away, Nigel Lamb, Steve Jones, the third-place consolation final, the battle of the Brits, if you will. And this time, it's Nigel Lamb the victor. And with the victory, he will make his way to the podium for the first time in his Red Bull Air Race World Series career.
Nigel, you are third place for Red Bull Air Race San Diego.
Fantastic! Thank you, San Diego!
What a great reaction by Nigel Lamb. Congratulations. He'll work his way to the podium for the first time ever. Mike Goldberg, Alan Preston, the finals are set. For Paul Bonhomme, well, he'd like to move one step closer to securing the World Series championship. And I believe for Kirby Chambliss, he would just love to heal some wounds.
I agree, Mike. Kirby's been struggling all year long. He's got a lot to prove, and he's in front of his hometown crowd. But Paul Bonhomme, blindingly fast, and today, destiny in his own hands. It's going to be a great race.
Number 1, Kirby, cleared into the track, smoke on.
Kirby Chambliss, once again with a little bit of a smile on his face. It's almost, even by making the finals here, it's almost as if a weight has been lifted from Kirby's shoulders.
Yeah, Mike, I'm not much of a believer in moral victories, but if you're looking for one, getting this far represents a change in his fortune for sure.
Well, the change in his plane, tactical equipment change, if you will, with the wing, has certainly made him a bit faster, and this is a course in which you talked about it earlier that is suited for that particular change.
Yeah, I believe that this wing on this airplane for this course is as close to a perfect setup as you're going to get. He may not have it completely dialed in yet, but I'm sure he likes the way it's flying.
Kirby Chambliss. The fastest time of the day was 124.58. That was his quarterfinal run. He was much slower in the semifinals, but the conditions have changed. Let's see what he can do here in the finals. And will it be good enough to perhaps help out fellow American Mike Mangold by preventing Bonhomme from gaining another point?
Well, you can bet Mike Mangold is the biggest Kirby Chambliss fan in the world right now.
That would be a change, by the way.
Yes, it would.
3 gates now remain. Can Chambliss earn his first victory of this very frustrating season? He maneuvers through the quadro for the final 2 times, pulling 8G in the turn. Knife edge on the final trip through the quadro, storming towards the finish. Oh, and what a great time! 124.69 seconds. Kirby loves it, and I can guarantee you so does Mike Mangold. Can Paul Bonhomme better that time and secure a 2-point advantage in the World Series standings? Find out when we return to San Diego on FSN. To secure that 2-point lead and win for the 3rd time this 2007 season.
Number 55, Paul, cleared into the track, smoke on.
To the track, smoke on, 455.
Alan, a justifiable look of concern on the face of Mike Mangold. We'll soon find out if it will be a 1-point or 2-point deficit that he has to try to overcome in Perth, Australia. Bonhomme looking to capture his 3rd race of the season, and he has opened up lightning fast. Bonhomme truly wants this victory. Wow! He leads by nearly a 1.5 seconds at the first split.
Mike, he exited the chicane and pulled almost 10 Gs. He is racing as hard and fast as I've ever seen him fly.
And realistically, why not? Because at this point in the race, at very least, he'll lead by 1 point going into Australia.
Exactly. There is no losing for him right here. He leads with 1 point or 2 points, and he's going to fly the wings off that airplane because that 1 extra point can mean everything.
He is looking to, well, almost theoretically, secure a title here today. Bonhomme must turn in his best time of the day, though. He was a 125.27, a 126.08. He must be faster than Chambliss at a 124.69. And look at the lead now by over 2 seconds.
Mike, our Mr. Steady and Conservative Locomotive is flying a completely different race today. He will not let go of this.
1 gate to go. Storming towards the finish. Paul Bonhomme has won in San Diego. Wow, what a time. 1:23.8.
Number 1 Kirby, 1 minute 24.69 seconds, no penalty. Number 55 Paul, 1 minute 23.8, no penalties. The winner of Red Bull Aero San Diego is number 55 Paul Bonhomme.
Paul Bonhomme celebrates his victory, and he even has a party favor to do it with. Now keep in mind, it's not New Year's Eve, it is his 43rd birthday. What a huge win for the Brit as he now takes a commanding World Series lead. How did he do it? Let's take a look at the Dartfish.
You know, Mike, I saw something that really interested me here, and who knows, maybe it was the American strategy for the day. But both Mike Mangold and Kirby Chambliss took the same route through this soft left-hand turn. It was a calculated risk, I think, to carry more speed and use the loose part of the course to catch up. It didn't work today.
So Paul Bonhomme wins for the 3rd time this season. He bettered Nicholas Evanoff in the quarterfinals. Perhaps got a bit of a birthday gift from fellow Brit Steve Jones in the semis, but I will tell you one thing. He earned the title with his 123.8 in the finals, bettering American Kirby Chambliss. So Jones was able to help Bonhomme. Chambliss couldn't return the favor for Mike Mangold. And with that, a 2-point lead for Mike Mangold in the World Series point standings has turned into a 2-point deficit with 1 event remaining. Let's go down to the tarmac with our winner, Paul Bonhomme.
So, Paul, the fastest run of the day and the last race of the day, hanging back all day strategy on your part?
There might have been a bit of that, but no, I've just been concentrating hard and you know, looking at all the tactics that people have been using, and it paid off. I'm chuffed to bits, and you know, I'm in a much better position now going into Perth. I was hoping not to go into Perth any points behind, so no, looking forward to it.
Do you owe Jonesy a pint?
No, I asked him actually. I asked him what it would be worth to just barge into the Quadro or something, and he said, "You got to be joking." He said, "I've done my work against Mike already for you." So he was going for it, and I was going for it, and you know, it worked out well in my favour.
All the best.
Cheers, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Congratulations to Paul Bonhomme. Truly, things could not have gone much better today because Paul Bonhomme has a 2-point lead with 1 race remaining. Take away the tie breaks and all those scenarios, partner. All he has to do is make the finals in Perth, Australia to be the World Series champion.
Well, history would be on his side. I mean, he hasn't made very many mistakes this year. But Mike Mangold, he's got to forget all about that stuff. He's got to get in that cockpit. He's got to fly that airplane with one purpose. He's got to win the race, forget about everything else.
Well, we will find out what happens when we next see you from Perth, Australia for our final race of the season. For my partner, Alan Preston, our entire Red Bull Air Race World Series crew, Mike Goldberg saying so long from beautiful San Diego, California. You've been watching the Red Bull Air Race World Series right here on FS7. So long, everybody.